Hello everyone, today our topic is glacial landforms. Before starting with the topic, I'd like to request every one of you to please subscribe our channel, those who are new to it, so that you can get update as soon as it is given. And please like if you like the video, so that we can get further encouragement to install more videos in the YouTube. And talking about the glacial landform, we are going to straight to the topic because it's a very long topic. So as the name suggests, is glacial landforms. It's basically formed when the temperature is about lesser than 0 degrees Celsius and the water vapor condenses and freezes into ice crystals. It's then precipitated to form snow. It's basically formed in higher altitude and latitude in the regions which receive snow in winter, and it gets melted in subsequent summer, and all this snow that melts are formed in and then formed accumulate, and it's then formed a perpetual snow cover. Talking about the glaciers, we don't have a vague idea about what is the types of glacier. Really, we can define the types of glacier, but here we are going to give a vivid description of the type of glaciers. It's basically divided into two broad classification on the basis of morphology and another on the basis of internal temperature regime. Then the morphology, it is being given as continental glacier and the mountain or the valley glaciers. The continental glaciers or the non-valley glaciers is, as the name suggests, it's basically formed over the continents and it's cover more extensive areas over the continents. Its extensive ice sheet radiate outward and form the center and move downslope, while the mountain or the valley glaciers, the body of the ice moving down the slope under the impact of the gravity through the valley, and it is broadened by a rock valley, the walls in the mountain. While the other type of broad classification which I have told is internal temperature regime. In this internal temperature regime, we have two further classification, that is a warm temperature glacier and the cold polar glacier. Now at first we are going to think that's what is can be the warm temperature, because a glacier will be formed only on the areas where there is cold area, but as the name suggests, it's a warm temperature. So it's basically formed when there is sufficient heat to raise the ice temperature to the pressure of the melting point, while the cold and the polar glaciers, it has a temperature below the melting point of the ice, and it's formed over the top to the bottom. And the further we are going to divide these glaciers according to its various parts. Basically, the continental and the mountain or the valley glaciers are being further classified, which we are going to see in the next slide. That is, the continental glaciers is being divided into ice sheet, its cap, dome, its outlet areas, shelf and the field. Ice sheet and the ice cap, as the name suggests, is both the same thing. The difference is that it's in the area. In the ice sheet, it's more than about 50,000 kilometers square, and in ice dome, it's less than about 50,000 kilometers square. So basically, it's a 50,000 kilometers square that plays a very important role in here, and it has a flattened dome which buries in the underlying relief, while the dome is just the central part of the ice sheet or the ice cap that has been formed. The outlet glaciers, and that's the name suggests, is the ice that drains the part of the ice sheet cap and which often passes through the confining mountains. The latter is the two left, that is the shelf and the field. The shelf is a thin floating of the ice sheet which is attached to the coast or this loosened part, while the ice field is the flat and the extensive mass of the ice. I have already discussed that the valley glaciers formation over the areas. Now we are going to divide into according to its past. Sometimes we used to define that the valley glaciers is known as other names, but these are actually the parts of the valley glaciers that is known as Kirk Glacier, Niche Glacier, Transition Glacier and the Piedmont Glacier. These are not the types but the part which valley glaciers usually contain. Now first is the Kirk Glacier. It's a very small ice body that occupies the armchair shaped and the hollow mountains which has been cut into the bedrock. Next is the niche glacier, which is the ice body resting upon a sloping rock face or in a hollow swallow. That is the glacier itself is modified into. While the transactional glacier, this has become so thick that it has been spilled over, dividing the ridges and joined over the glaciers and adjoining valleys. And lastly, the Piedmont Glacier. As the name suggests, what the Piedmont is known is basically formed over and extends over the lowlands, and it spread in an horizontal manner. Now, talking about extensively, we need to know about its feature. And from the feature, it's basically formed when the erosional process starts. So we need to talk about the mechanics of the glacial erosion. Now this glacial erosion works on the basis of two mechanics, that is glacial plucking and abrasion. We know about that plucking. The plucking is a lifting and removal of fragments of bedrock by glaciers, while abrasion is an angular block plucked and quarried in the terms of moving ice, and that freeze firmly in the glaciers where they act as a tool and grind and scrap the bedrocks. So glacial erosions are basically formed by these two mechanics, and from these two mechanics it forms a huge lot of features. Now talking about the features, there is so much that we need to divide into two types. One is the small scale features and another is the large scale features. Talking about the small scale features, it's huge in number, but we're going to give few examples of the features that has been formed, its mechanics, how it has been formed. The first one is the striation. When this talking about the striation, it's a very simply stretches on the rock surface, and the glacier carries the gravel or the boulder to the rock while it has been scratched. If the rock is softer than the fragments while the bedrock has been striated, it's very common. We can see this over the glaciers. When we see in the pictures, it gives a visual impression, and visually it's very appealing. The next is talking about after the striations, it's about the polished surface. The polished surface, if the undersurface of the glacier contains about the silt, this act like sandpaper, smoothing and polishing over the rock surface. The grinding action of this ice is further crushes this rock and the grains, and almost abundance of these particles forms this rock floor. And the next is the grooves, the large scale abrading of the fragments. Now what are these fragments? These fragments are usually the gravel, is usually the boulders, and that has been caught by the ice. This after that has been caught by the ice, this has developed striations, and the striations formed in larger number, like it extends about a meter and even more than that. This excavated across a varying lithologies and geological structures. Next is a frictional cracks. These are accurate in form, either in concave or convex structure, and this direction is in the moment, and it is irritated as a result of the transmission of the stress. We need to know that these features are either in concave and convex, and its direction is basically transmission of the stress that has been generated by the moving ice. From here, we need to identify the most common glacial cracks. These glacial cracks are crescentic fractures, lunate fractures, and crescentic gorge, which is very common. The next which is the sickle trough. This is basically produced by the ice block, and while moving in the high obstructions, the cliff of pieces of this bedrock has been formed. Here the word cliff of pieces is that when the great ice blocks move, the cliffs that has been formed as an obstruction obviously gets off, and that formed over the bedrock. This forms as known as a sickle trough. The next is glacial mills or moulins. As the name suggests, these glacial mills are moulding. These are melting and the pathology of the weird deep cauldrons through the fissured ice. Now basically what is this melting and pathology of the weird deep cauldrons. It's the when the sun is shining and the temperature is somewhat higher, the small pools and the drills develop, this finally gathering into streams, and this which fall over the crevasses. After it has formed over the crevasses, the melting and this thawing occurs over the weird cauldrons, and this wearing of these cauldrons gives the rise of the glacial mills and the moraines. After all of this, we come to the end of the small scale features, and lastly we are going to do about this large scale features. It's a huge in number, and graphically, as the name suggests, the features are formed over an extensive area. In the small scale features, it's basically formed or extend about a meter or more than a meter, but here the features are being formed about more than about hundreds of meters. So first, we are going to talk about the Neviation hollows. These are localized means of erosion of the hillside, and these are being basically formed by the frost action and mass wasting of the edges, and it has been formed beneath the fingering of the snow patches. A hollow is being created. So basically, what is this frost action and mass wasting? These are basically the weathering action which are being followed or formed, or you can say it's basically seen over this higher altitude and higher latitudinal areas, and this weathering is being formed at these edges and is beneath the fingering of the snow patches. All this together give rise to the Neviation hollows. Next we have this Protalus rampart. Protalus rampart, I'm sorry about the name which I have been misspoken. That's Protalus rampart. This is basically the broken rock fragment formed over the top of the rock of the back wall of the Neviation hollow and fall on the top of the snow bank and the slide downward to its lower edge, forming over the linear and curvilinear ridge, having a composition of a similar to a moraine. Now, there is a very common phenomenon which we are going to see, that each of these different landforms are interconnected with each other. At first, we have talked about the Neviation hollows. Now, in this, we are going to see this Protalus rampart is being formed as a rock fragment which have been formed a part of the Neviation hollow. So, it can be said the Neviation hollow is being formed first, and then the broken fragments of the top of the Neviation hollows that has been formed on the snow bank give rise to a slide downward to the lower edges, and that give the formation of the linear or curvilinear ridge. Then this composition formed over the moraines give rise to this Protalus rampart. Next we have sharp. This creek has been formed by different names in different areas. We need to know about the different names, but before that we need to know about its formation, that how it has been formed. It's basically armchair shaped or emphatic creek or corrie is horse shaped. So basically this has been formed over the different type of shapes, and different new names are given basically to the denoting to different areas on which it has been formed. Specifically we know as the Swivum in Walls in Scotland, it is known as the Corrie. In Germany it's known as Kar Bomb. In Botten in Norway, in Scandinavia and in Sweden it's known as Niche. So basically different areas it has different names, but the features are basically armchair, emphatic kirk or corrie. It's basically horse shaped, and basically what are these depressions formed is of the depression of the steep wall representing a glaciated valley head. The next is the Tarn Lake. The Tarn Lake are very much common in the North England. These are extensively formed over about 100 of meters behind the bedrock. These are the basins containing over the sparkling of the crystal clear and the Kark lakes. This kark have been formed by the deepening of the glacier excavated as it has been formed of this topographic closure. So talking about this, we need to know about this kark which we have already studied, that it's a steep wall depression. So this is steep wall depression representing a glaciated valley, and in this Tarn Lake we need to identify that this kark has been further deepened by this glacial excavation over the topographic closure. So this extends about 100 of meters and it's very sparkling crystal clear. The next is the Arete is the creek develops and they eat back the hill mass by headward sapping, which is a very several creek lies close to one another. This is being divided, separating them, and became progressively narrowed until it is reduced to a narrow, precipitous, knife-edged ridge bounded by either side by the steep headwall of the Opperst Creek. It's very much common in the France and the Grat in Germany. Now, here we identify that it is basically a further developed of creek where it's in the hill mass is eaten up by the headward erosion. The next one is the Arete. After that, Arete is a sawtooth ridge. This is basically an extension form of the word Arete. In Arete is a bedrock. It's formed homogeneous manner. The skyline profile of the Arete is very much smooth. But if the rock is about heterogeneous and irregular in structure, particularly it's joined together, that is the structure is being joined together, giving rise to a rough and jagged type of structure, which is basically shows about or is a replica of sawtooth type of structure. So the name henceforth given is the sawtooth ridge. The next is the gendarmes. The gendarmes are the spires and the joint defined columns of rock that stands on the crest. So gendarmes, here the name suggests, is the spires and the joint defined columns. So it have been jointed and it has spines on the columns which is stand on the crest. So that this type of structures is very much common in gendarmes, but is not so much common. It is found in few pockets of the world. The next is the horn. From the picture it's been given, that is a horn. It's a formation of a pyramidal peak. So here we can, from the picture we can see this is a pyramidal peak formed over the area, and if the glaciated whistle away on the mountain, it formed all over the areas to give this a pyramidal peak. So we can get a somewhat image of the pyramids that have been found, and we can relate to that is a pyramidal peak that has been formed over the area. This pyramidal peak is known as a horn. The next is the col. The col is formed basically when the two sharks converge, cutting into small work, and divide the world by lowering by hundreds of meters, and a saddle shaped gap has been formed here is known as a col. Now in this picture, though it's not clear, but I'm going to try to give you a clear picture from this, that is a col. Now if we imagine these two as this two as a part of the creek, and this is about 100 of meters that has been formed, and it has been divided well by the lowered by 100 of meters by saddle shaped gap. And if you clearly observe, if I erase that part, it's about a saddle shaped gap has been formed in this middle. So this gap is known as the col. The next one is U-shaped valley. It's very much common in every, more or less every type of erosion, but basically as the name suggests, it has to be in the form of U. And so here from the diagram we can get a clear picture that it has been formed in an U-shaped. This has been the valleys which have become this has been become of the erosional process and occurs throughout the base of the glacier, which become progressively less at the side, and it is not being concentrated in the point where it happens. I like to explain through this picture. It's that, see, these are the two valleys, and in the middle this U-shaped has been formed. Here no deposition is there, but erosional process occurs throughout the base of this glacier, to give this U shaped. Now if I erase this part, you get a clear picture. See that it's a U shaped has been formed over these areas. So and basically that's U-shaped valley. The lastly it's a glacial trough. The glacial trough have been deep headable, which is known as trough ends, and this has a close of upper end of an over deepened glacial valley over which the number of creeks developed. So this is a part where the creeks develop, and the head of this glacial trough is also not a creek but the head wall, but the lower edge is a creek. This is basically a conspicuous drop of a creek and the threshold to the floor, and the glacial trough is known as a trough head wall. Next we are going to know about this rock steps. So what's a rock step? As the step word denote, it's basically a place where we used to go up. So here also the rock steps is where the glacier come across the rock sequence of varying resistance to the floor and excavated into a series to form excessive steps, which is known as a rock step. So what are this resistance has been created? This has been created when there is a horizontal representation of hard and softer rock, where the harder rocks are not eroded and the softer rocks generally eroded faster than the harder rocks, giving to a step-like structure known as a rock step. As the name suggests, we can see these rocks are forming a step. These are the harder rocks, and these have the portion that has been eroded are the softer rocks. Next is the rock basins. These are the rock basins are the sections of the valley over the deepened by the glaciers and either rotational movement, and this have been a selective erosion of highly jointed and fractured rock surface by the passage of glacier. So from here this you can see these are the elongated, and here the depression has been done. This has been slightly lowered up, and these areas and the fractures have been created. So this whole areas fractures has been formed. The next is the Paternoster Lakes. It's a long profile of glacial trough. So it's a basically extension of the glacial trough in a long profile that exhibit a series of basins that has been separated by resistant edges of rock. These are the basins that form chains of lake, each of with a waterfall and the downstream leach into the next of the lake. These lakes which have been formed give rise to a Paternoster Lake. Basically, this is a form of lakes and the waterfalls which formed downstream. That this gives a very visually appealing view over the area, and this type of these chains of lakes are greatly known as a Paternoster Lake. Next we have the glacial stairway or the Salopian stairs, the longitudinal profile of the same glaciated valley that resembles a giant staircase is formed a glacial stairway. Here it has two parts, one is riser, another is regal. The riser is the down valley and end of the every step and the accent of every step below, while the regal is a rock bar at the top of just the back of the riser. So we have two-part riser and regal. The next is the truncated spar. So truncated spars are the steepened bluff of the site of the glaciated trough in between the tributary valleys. Now this we can identify is a steepened bluff, but how these truncated spars have been formed. So if these glaciers are flowing over about interlocking spars, the sharp of these acute bends occurring along with this course of the streams and its move over the less straightened up of the glacial abrasion and cut the projecting spars to produce a blunt triangular facet. The triangular facet that has been formed is known as a triangular dead spars. The hanging valley, those give the shape of more of the valley. That's U-shaped, but it's a hanging valley. I show you from the picture. That's when the valley glacier is finally rejected, this valley floor or the tributary valleys which will be of higher than that of the main valleys formed that the higher is formed the tributary valleys is a hanging valley. So in this picture you have to see that in this the valley is about eroded, and this has receded from the tributary valley with a higher than that of the main valley. So if this is a main valley, this has been slightly hazy in this picture. So in this main valley, the tributed valley is higher than the main valley, and this gives rise to the tributary valleys, which is known as a hanging valley. Next we have these fjords or fjords. Basically both are the names common in various parts of the world. These are long narrow inlets of the sea coast, and which is more or less of the steep side, and these have been formed when the glaciers making their ways to the sea, and this has swooped down deep the trough like valleys. Later we have the whaleback. The whaleback are also known as porpoise back. So whaleback, porpoise back, or the dolphin back. Basically whaleback are bigger in structure and dolphin a porpoise back are smaller in structure. These are the bedrock feature. Obviously it will be a bedrock, but it's the name relates that it's a smooth end and elongated, gently curved by resembling the back of the whole well rising over the water level. The next is the drumlins. The drumlins are the hillocks that have been molded or eroded in a streamlined form by glaciers. This drumbling extends over a length for about 10 to about 100 meters. Next we have Rocky Mountains. This Rocky Mountain is also known as flagbark. This is a predominant bedrock knob which has been rounded, smoothed, grooved and striated and locally polished by abrasion on one flank, and have the steep, jagged, cliffy and irregular on the opposing flank by the plucking. These Rocky Mountains are henceforth known as flagbark. Now the flagbark and Rocky Mountain both are same, but the layers that have been formed by this Rocky Mountain are basically known as flagbark, and these are basically smoothed and grooved. This is a very important which we need to identify, that is smooth, grooved and striated, locally polished and has abrasion on one flank. The next is the crag and the tail. With this we are about towards the end of this. And the crag and the tail, the crag is a result of the presence of the obstructive mass of the rock. The mass protects softer rock in the lee from the effect of glacial erosion, and the ice appears to be moved over the crag and leaving the slope. So what has been moved up is the crag, and what has been left is this gently sloping left is known as tilts. So from here it has been said that the glacial erosion that has been formed over the ice appears as a crag, and leaving this the gently sloping is the tail. The tail is basically formed over the leeward side, and the last but not the least is the tunnel valleys, meltwater channels. Both the names suggest, we can see as the glacial water produce vast amount of meltwater when it has get about heat or get sufficient amount of heat to radiate. So the meltwater form, the sufficient water flows on the glacier, and some within and some over the bedrock. Now in the pictures we used to see that in above there is a glacial layer, but in this and penetrating inside we see about a watery layer. So this watery layer by the rapid speed is there, and before emerging the flow among the site of this glacier, and so down this valley, this glacier snout has been formed. This water laden of these sediments and flowing over those hydraulic pressure. This hydraulic pressure creates a flat flowed surface. This flat flowed surface is known as the tunnel valleys or the meltwater valleys. So this is basically formed after the glacier starts to melt and the water over the surface is being formed. Lastly we have the nuntacks. The nuntacks are occasional and used over the margin to do where the high peaks project through the ice shelf, and this is basically an erosional and depositional feature of the valley glaciers, and this is the largely confined over the valleys through the modified almost all the land surface. With this I come to this end of this. I know this is hugely a long type of presentation which I have given, but I think if it is of any help of you, please like this and stay well, stay safe. Thank you.